shapes.
What's up, guys? It's SJU. It's still here. It's Tuesday. Joe, Dan, Billy, Spencer. Hey, everybody. I hope you liked the new shapes and the new font. That was my first time seeing the shapes.
Oh, see, look, now we got new.
Like the lower thirds.
Ooh.
Look at this.
Wow. We're so geometric.
Ooh,
It kind of looks like the Saved by the Bell opening credits.
a little
with
bit,
all the different
which I
shapes.
kind of dig.
Right.
It's like-
Squigglies and it's fun. It's flirty.
Yep.
It's new. It's different.
Yep.
But it's also exactly the same.
Exactly. I'm really hoping that the Saved by the Bell look means that you have like a 90s like cell phone that you can just talk into and freeze time.
Pause.
Perfect.
I'm sitting in this chair backwards and no one noticed.
Oh, man. I did the sprain all the way to the studio.
I'm actually wearing Slater's high-waisted jeans under the table.
You
just
guys
can't
know
see
our
it.
audience is 9, right? They have no idea.
Sorry,
what
we'll make
there's a-
Saved by the Bell the new class references.
Yeah.
Degrassi.
Or at least the college years. Oh, that show. Hey, guys, we're not here to talk about Saved by the Bell. I'm going to keep this sucker on track. Goodbye. Welcome to our new after show. Remember Saved by the Bell? We do. Where we just talked about Saved by the Bell. Tori was an underrated cast member of Saved by the Bell.
She was rated. She was
Properly
finally
rated. Okay,
yeah, she
hang
was
on,
finally
hang
rated.
on. No, she had a cool leather jacket.
She was.
That was it?
Yeah, she was terrible. Even
fine.
Zach looked like he didn't like her that much, but he's like, I gotta date somebody on this show.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
totally fair. Yeah. We're talking. Oh, we're talking Disney
Mark Paul
Plus.
Gosselaar is a highly underrated actor. We had a Gosler. I say the better Gauze.
Wow.
You know what?
Controversial.
I'll agree with that.
All right, continue.
I got the squeaky chair. See? Same show, guys. Fears quelled. We're talking Disney Plus and how it will integrate into the MCU. The answer will surprise you, because the answer is, now that Kevin Feige is overseeing those shows, it will. We're talking, there's a lot going on in LA in the business right now between the WGA and their agents. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of back and forth on Twitter about that. We're going to get into a little bit of what's going on there, what that means, and then we're going to talk a little Game of Thrones, because
Never too much Thrones.
there is literally never too much Thrones at all. Story number one. So, how will Disney Plus shows integrate into the MCU? This is Viva Variety and the AV Club. Variety got an exclusive interview with Kevin Feige where he spoke at length about the MCU and how Disney Plus will fold in. First, let's set up. I know we always talk about Kevin Feige as a benevolent Thanos overlord, but let's talk about the sort of cute, humanizing thing. What's that website you use to log all your movies?
Letterbox.
Letterbox.
I was just talking about it right before you came in.
He used to do that with a pen and paper.
Whoa.
Apparently, there was but before computers, you just did a letterbox in an old spiral. Feige talked about how big of a film nerd he is, which is very endearing. When he was a kid, he used to keep a journal, and he'd write down every movie he saw, where he saw it, how many times he saw it. He'd record what the sound system was like, what kind of sound they used. He was very, very, very nerdy. That's sweet. Look at that.
I wish I would have done that.
I had a book when I was little. I think my grandma bought it for me. I don't know where she got it, but it was like pre-Etsy, but it's something you would totally buy on Etsy. That was like, name of movie. How many stars would I give that? And for a good 2 or 3 years, I filled it. I mean, look, it was like Mighty Ducks 2, Mighty Ducks 3. So it was like not really like great cinema, but yeah, I did that for a while.
In the pre-internet era where it was tough to find movie posters, particularly where I lived, I would go to Blockbuster Video and buy their calendar, which would have a different movie poster for every month.
I remember
and
that,
cut the calendar part off and hang it on the wall. But they had really weird movies in there. So like for a long time, I had like Fair Game, the Cindy Crawford, Baldwin brother.
Long August.
Well, you work with what you have,
Yeah.
Smitty. That's what I had access to.
That's amazing.
I'm
You're the only teenage boy who had a Cindy Crawford poster on as well, but like
It was
because
it was a
you had
movie.
to, because the movie came with your Blockbuster
I've
calendar.
never seen the movie, but it was a movie, and that was good enough to be on the wall.
You never saw Fair Game?
No.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fine. I was about to be like, oh, it's trash, you gotta. But then in my head, I was like, no, he doesn't gotta. He really doesn't gotta. So, when talking about the future of the MCU after Endgame, Feige said, some of these films will feature characters you already... I love Feige responses so much, and this is a good one.
I think that shows. It's everyone loves Marvel characters. Yep. We love watching them. Everyone loves watching them at home, watching them in the theaters, and the way that they interact with each other would be really cool. Let's see what he actually said.
Pretty much that. Some of these films will feature characters that you already know. Some supporting characters will assume leading roles, while some new characters will be introduced. The reward for all of these films working is that we get to try to do it again and do it differently and learn from our mistakes and try something we haven't tried before.
I want to like
What's the
outwardly.
mistake?
Yeah, I was gonna say like.
Yeah.
So mistakes meaning.
Agents of Shield.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought
Incredible
JT put
Hulk.
Carter.
I thought JT put Jeremy Renner on the screen when I said mistake, and I was like, "Damn, JT."
No, Hawkeye's getting a
Harsh.
series, or is this all the Netflix shows that like everything needs to connect with everything else?
I mean, I guess they are. He says they're going to intersect with the movies in a big way. It's a totally new form of storytelling that we get to play with and explore. I mean, it's not a totally new form of storytelling, serialized television shows. But I
mean,
I see what he's trying to do.
Integration.
Integration. I mean,
Yes.
they kind of did it with like. I remember the X-Files movie was like tangentially linked, like.
It was pretty heavily
Yeah.
linked. Yeah, because the
Underrated soundtrack, too.
I mean, it had to. It was a key piece of the mythology for the series as a whole, but they did also have to play the game of like. If you saw the first one more so, if you saw the show, you had to have a continuation, but then you also had to come. If you came in cold, you had to know what was going on too. So it was weird, but it was a pretty key piece that they would built on going forward. It was like a hybrid.
Yeah, I don't know how excited I would be if the Disney Plus stuff becomes homework for the movies. Like, that's kind of oppressive if it's like, I need to watch the Hawkeye show to know why Hawkeye has a hat now.
That's Kevin Feige's one note. It's like,
Hats.
I think these heroes should start
baseball
wearing more
cap.
hats.
Yeah, more hats.
I'm curious if we have characters we know in leading roles and characters that we're not as familiar with in supporting roles. Will we have characters we not know not appearing in any
At all
Disney Plus
times.
programming?
At all times,
At any
Spencer.
point, can that be confirmed from this statement?
Do you know the High Evolutionary?
Yeah.
Well, if you
He
do,
won't be.
then maybe he won't. I don't know.
Yeah.
How mad is Jeff Loeb right now? How mad is the head of Marvel Television, who tried to do this way back in the day with how like connecty Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was supposed to be and Defenders was going to
it
wrap
was for like a
in
hot
and-
minute.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like.
But even then, it was like
It was
sort
like,
of.
please, sir, could you spare a Sif? And they would get like one episode a year of like the D-ist list character. You get like Sitwell, and you're like, I kind of know that guy,
yeah.
but.
Or
yeah.
like I
Nick Fury showed up once. and
What?
it was
It
the
was like,
pilot.
yeah.
And I remember there was like an episode where they all had brooms, and the opening line was almost like, "Sure is hard cleaning up after all this Thor: The Dark World."
Yeah, I got ether on my hand.
Oh no!
They got a little bit of good stuff when Shield fell. They got some good stuff, but then Inhumans got punted to them, and so then they had to do Inhumans for a very long
Yeah,
time.
I like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Anytime I mention Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I want to make sure that all of you understand that I speak to them as one would speak to a kitten that needs to be rescued and fostered. Like, it was a good show that just it's a part of the MCU, it just didn't happen, and they deserve better.
Yeah, I actually watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. not week to week, but like usually when the season's done, I'll like go ahead
Crank
and just
through.
catch up.
Yeah.
And like once they didn't have to try to like shoehorn a Sif in there, like the Ghost Rider stuff was fun. Like the stuff they're doing now is fun. Like it's a fine show. But yeah, like it was sold as, weren't they saying like this all counts, or they had some like
this is the
catchphrase
companion piece
that,
to the
that they used the
MCU
whole
or-
time. Then
yeah.
that did not. Same with like Daredevil. Like you go back now and watch that first season, those first couple episodes. Like they're really leaning into like the Avengers was a thing that just happened last week, and then it like completely dies out.
Yeah, Jeff's probably having a rough couple weeks with this. I don't even know if they're overseeing it, or is Feige and
They
can't do everything,
They
you
are
know.
not. They are not overseeing. it.
Yeah.
Loeb's not overseeing it?
No.
Wow.
No, this
Wow.
is a Marvel Studios production, not a Marvel TV stuff.
Whew, that sucks. Well, here's to hoping for you guys that Cloak and Dagger gets renewed for 8 new seasons, because
Cloak and Dagger is
people
great,
deserve
by the
jobs.
way. If you're into that kind of stuff, That Cloak and Dagger and Runaways are both great.
Right on.
Like, they're still doing cool stuff. I
Yeah.
just think, like, it's almost like once they didn't have to be connected, then they were like, all right, let's do our own thing. And it's great, but it's, I don't know. I'm curious to see, like, yeah, how much Bucky and Falcon can you do? Like, at a certain point, it's like, I don't want to have to, like, watch that whole series and then it's like a new, Winter Soldier or something movie comes out. It's like, wait, where are they now? How is this guy here? What happened? I'll have to go read 12 comics and watch 5.
I mean, I feel like it'll be a lot of the same way that in the comics, like the Avengers are always going to be like, here's these core 6 people. And if you really want to do a nice, that's all going to be like punches and splash pages. And if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, you got to go read the Vision comic to learn about how he lived in the suburbs for a while and had a family. Which I hope that gives them the opportunity to do some weird stuff with these shows. That they wouldn't have a chance to do on the big screen.
That'd be really silly to kill the golden goose of these films and like make them more convoluted and than they already are. Like, it's already hard to just drop into the middle of the MCU. So we're at full saturation, guys. We're fully saturated. We're squishing. Our shoes are squishing when we walk with superhero content. And if you add too much more, you're gonna have a flood.
You're gonna need to change those shoes.
Change those shoes. Yeah.
The levee's about to break.
Yeah.
You don't have to consume it all, though.
No, I know. Right. Of course. But I just think that, like, people's interest, all of us love this stuff, and it's like, we only have so many hours of the day.
I wonder if it will become, though, like the comics, where it's like, look, I love Marvel and DC comics, but I don't pick up every single title. I just pick up the ones I want.
That's what got me off comics. Is I used to collect some titles, like, I would read 1 or 2 Superman titles a month. I would read 1 or 2 Batman titles a month. And in the mid to late 90s, when they needed to sell more comics, and they made it so that, like, no, if you want to understand the story, you have to read 4 Superman titles, 1 a week. You've got to read Action Comics and Man of Steel and Superman and like every single one of them that they were doing to keep up. Like at some point, as my shoes got squishy and I was running out of money, and I was like, okay, well, if my choice is between having to read all of these comic books or reading none of them, then I guess I pick none of them because I can't keep up otherwise, and so I'm just gonna stop because it was too much. It was too overwhelming. So
Marvel Comics did not correct course in the 2000s either.
Nope.
It was like, you want Civil War? Well, sure, you could just read the 4 issues of Civil War that are the very broadest strokes of this story. But if, like, you really want to read Civil War, you got to read all 45 supporting issues.
Now there's, like, preludes to the prelude of Civil War. Then there's the prelude to Civil War. Then there's Peter Parker Civil War, then there's Spider-Man Civil War.
Yeah, then there's Civil War, Fallout.
Yeah, it's just like so many, and every ancillary character now like has their own title. Yeah. That's kind of what, like, similar to you, like that's kind of why I was like, this is just getting a little too much. But I wonder if in its most basic concept, it'll be like, yeah, I really loved Matt Fraction's run on Hawkeye. So it's like, if they kind of take that show in that direction, like,
definitely,
I'm more interested in that than honestly a Loki show. Like,
sure,
I'd watch a standalone Loki arc if it's like an 8-episode, like, here's some weird Loki mystical adventure, and it doesn't inform the next Thor movie, really. Like, it doesn't have anything much to do with the next one.
Yeah, I'm all for, hey, I really like the Loki character, and this show is all about, like, informing and giving me some more Loki and giving me some more depth, but it doesn't need, you're right, it doesn't need to set up to Avengers New Game or whatever the next Avengers movie.
New Game Plus.
New Game Plus.
I'm just going to be watching the Jeff Goldblum show. While everyone's watching these MCU shows, I'm just going to be overwatching Jeff Goldblum.
Is his Thor character?
No, he has his own show on Disney Plus. Okay. It's like Jeff Goldblum discovers like the wonders of the world, and it's just like that's
Definitely.
That's
Done.
what I'll be watching.
Sold.
I also want him to be the game master in that show.
I mean,
a little bit.
Isn't he?
I mean, he is. You're right. You are
just a
absolutely
coat
right.
of paint on Jeff Goldblum.
You're absolutely right. I would watch a like a family reunion type show starring the game master, like a Death at a Funeral kind of show about the game master and the collector, having to like
Oh,
come
yeah.
back for a family event and just watching Del
Making
Toro.
small talk.
Yeah.
There's a great if you go to Disneyland, the new Guardians thing in the line. There's a great like painting they have of the two of them, and they're just like
Really?
sitting over a table, just like talking, like I think there's like a chessboard or some game board in the middle. It's like, I want to know more about that.
Great.
Does Goldblum do the? Well, he wouldn't do it for Guardians, but I
No,
wish he
he's
did
not
the
in
video for the ride.
Benicio does, because you're in the collector's
Yeah.
tower. But that painting is just like, it's like on an island by itself. Like there's no other mention of like why Jeff Goldblum is in this ride except that one painting in that one part of the line.
I love that though. So yeah, these are supposedly going to connect.
Yes.
I don't care if they do. I'd almost rather they didn't, and I just got a neat whatever a Bucky Falcon thing is going to be. Are they going to be an odd couple?
Oh, you betcha. One's an unfrozen caveman soldier, and the other's a fast-talking flyboy from the planet Earth.
And when a little girl gets dropped into their lives, everything will change forever.
These two New York cops will have to overcome their differences and save the city. Yeah, it's going to 100% be superpowered lethal weapon. Yeah.
Yep. And then hopefully Vision and Scarlet, which just get to live in the suburbs and do Full House with a robot and a magic lady.
Yeah, with a laugh track and everything.
Yeah. Oh my! I would
Multicam.
legitimately love that show. Or at least if that's like his, I don't know, his fantasy, and like you see that's how he sees the world or
Yeah.
something. That would be super fun.
He's got like a little like terrier that like hates him, but then in reality it's Hawkeye. Just like, oh, you.
Oh, hello, little dog. Hard cut to Renner. Like, what's happening? Speaking of what's happening is you're about to subscribe to what? Fandom. Sorry, I'm getting used to it too. To Fandom Entertainment, formerly Screen Junkies News. Hit the bells. Hit subscribe. SJU happens every morning except Mondays through the end of
5
Game
more
of Thrones.
weeks.
For
Yeah,
5
there's gonna
more
be Game of
weeks.
Thrones.
Yeah.
We're doing Watching Thrones. Again, if you weren't completely shell-shocked by all the like sudden changes we tossed on you guys, we're Fandom Entertainment now.
This channel's Phantom Entertainment.
This channel is
Screen
Fandom
Junkies.
Entertainment.
We're
Yeah.
Screen Junkies.
We are still
let's-
Screen
yeah,
Junkies.
No, we're
let's
Screen Junkies
pause.
universe.
Yes.
Because we always try to talk as honestly and candidly with you guys as we can, and I do feel like we hit you guys in the head with this like a sock full of quarters without really messaging it super well. We did once, but like maybe you didn't see that episode.
No, everybody watches till the end on Fridays.
And you know, just a lot of moving parts in getting all this kind of stuff together. Our team is small and drowning in
Mighty.
work and really working their butts off for you guys. So sometimes things like that get lost in the shuffle. So if you were like, oh my God, what's happening? Where are they? What's going on? And that stressed you out, we legit apologize for that. So this channel, Fandom Entertainment. Charting with Dan, still there. SJU,
Reviews,
still there.
Everything's
Reviews,
the same.
everything's the same.
No
Watching
content.
Thrones, we did the same way,
Right.
But it was 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
I mean, Watching Thrones was always
Every
the Monday,
yeah, the
at
Monday of.
SJU. It's just I think because it happened on the same day as the change, people were like,
We're like,
oh,
what's happening? Yeah.
Everything programming is the same.
Yeah, so programming's the same. People were like, why are you called Fandom now? Because we were bought by a company called Fandom.
Last year.
Last year.
Yeah. So we've been under Fandom for over a year now. We're just kind of now making
Yeah,
some branding changes, but the content is not going to change.
Yeah.
That purchase is the reason, literally the
That
reason
we are
we
still
are on
here.
the air right
Yes.
now.
Yeah, so
in
if
the
anyone's
studio.
like, I don't like this, that like a corporate overlord came in and went, we don't really have a corporate overlord. We have a company that came in and was like, would you like to continue to make things? And we were like, yeah.
Yes.
And so they were like, make them for us. So yeah, that's been really kind of nice. Screen Junkies Main remains Screen Junkies Main. And yeah, there's a lot of other kind of cool stuff coming in the pipelines, and you know, changes here and there, and we'll make sure that you guys are abreast of them as they come. And yeah, welcome to this next chapter in what we do here on Fandom Entertainment, and we're glad you're along for the ride.
It's the new jingle, by the way.
Phantom Entertainment. It kind of sounds like Fanta. Don't you want to
Want the fandom?
Don't you want the fandom?
Catch.
So, now that I've completely botched that,
Stuck the landing, Joe.
really nailed it. Just
Look, you want Defy back? No. We're Fandom Entertainment now.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
And that means that sometimes I'm going to sully an airplane right to the side of the water into a building by accident because I'm bad at flying this plane.
Sully didn't crash things.
No, I'm saying I would be a bad Sully. I'm saying I would
That's a
be
bad Sully metaphor. Sully landed smoothly. That's why he's Sully.
I can't even stick the landing on my I didn't stick the landing. Switch chairs with me.
Okay.
What's going on?
I don't know.
What's chaos?
We would just want people to know that SJU is still disorganized and shittily put together as
Is
it
there any
ever
better
was.
proof of the fact that this show is not going to change one bit from what it was?
Story number 2.
Order in the court. Oh, am I joeing? No, you keep hosting. That's too confusing.
No.
They won't be able to tell what's happening.
We're all more or less identical. It's fine.
Hold on. Two white guys right apart to this side, and then no one will tell the difference. Hi, I'm Joe. I like two things in this world, wrestling and hosting. We're going to host now because I don't even know enough about wrestling to make fun of it. Sorry to break the fourth wall. Guys, the Writers Guild.
They call that breaking kayfabe.
Yeah. I broke Kafabi, which I believe is wrestling for. Don't everyone knows it's fake? What's the whatever? All right, the WJ. It's a thing. Most of your favorite content has words in it, and that is thanks to the brave men and women of the WGA. They are beefing with their talent agents. I'm not quite sure why. Dan, help me understand.
It's very complicated. I will do my best. This dispute is between the WGA, the Writers Guild, which is the union that represents the writers, and the talent agents. Which there's an organization that represents all of the agencies. Which there's like 4 big ones.
Their agents have agents.
Their agents have agents. Yeah, there's 4 big agencies that represent the lion's share of the writers. There's a lot of other smaller agencies.
God, I'd hate to see the
some of them.
agent's agent.
Can you imagine? One step more than Jeremy Piven.
Super Piven.
So
Activate Super Piven.
Just Piven with the smaller Piven sitting on his shoulders going, Mecha Shiva!
yes, exactly.
It's like more Super Shredder, but like it's all arms holding cell phones.
So the Writers Guild and the ATA, which is the agents organization, had this code, kind of like the Jerry Maguire agreement of principles type thing that they've had between them forever. That
43
basically,
years.
Yeah, it's not like a contract. It's not like a labor contract. It's basically just like, here are some agreements that we've had, and a good faith agreement. And basically what's happened over the last several years, but particularly since television has really ramped up, is that traditionally agents who worked for writers were paid from the 10% commission that they got from getting a writer hired. So an agent represents a writer. They go to a show and say, I want you to hire this writer. And then if the show hires the writer, then the agent gets 10% of that commission. That's how they make that money. In recent years, progressively more and more, agents and agencies have also made money directly from studios through this thing called packaging deals, which is basically an agent will go to a network or a studio and say, hey, I have this group of writers, this writer or 2 or 3 writers, and this project, and I'm bringing it to you, and I'll give you this talent and this project, and in return, they take it's like a 10% commission from the studios, plus you get, if the show gets picked up, they continue to get paid. The agents do, not the writers. The agents continue to get paid. So these could be potentially very lucrative deals for the agencies, because they bring these projects to a network or a studio, and then they continue to get money and success. But that money doesn't necessarily or at all really trickle down to the writers themselves.
I'm still not really understanding the difference between selling a writer versus selling a project with that a writer came up with.
Basically, a lot of times they're not just selling one project. They're saying, like, I've got this group of 3 writers. It's largely for television. I've had this group of writers, and I'm going to package these writers together with this project and sell the project to you with this talent attached already. And it's sort of like a finder's fee. And for me bringing this to you, you're going to give the agency 10%.
On top of the 10%, they're also going to take.
You're going to get
writers.
10% of the net or 5% of the net. That's the thing to negotiate. But the big sticking point here has been that progressively more and more the agencies are getting a lot of their income from these packaging deals and not the 10% commission that they would get from a studio for a writer when they're representing a writer individually. And what the writers sort of have a beef with is the fact that when the agencies are getting their money directly from the studios and not from the 10% commission that they're getting from a writer's fee, then a lot of times they feel that the agencies are sort of incentivized to sell their writers a little bit more cheaply to make the package more enticing. The agency still gets a lot of money, but the writers don't get as much because if the agent's not getting paid 10% of the writer's fee, then the writers don't feel like the agents are really that incentivized to negotiate a higher fee for them. So the writers feel like their pay is stagnating or dropping, but the agencies themselves are making more money because they're packaging writers and projects together directly to studios and networks and getting all of these lucrative commissions that are not going to the writers themselves. So that's the big key is the WGA and the agents. The WGA is basically going to the agencies and saying, hey, stop it. We don't think this is good for writers. And the agencies are saying, yeah, well, that's the way that we do business. And we kind of think it's inappropriate that you are trying to tell us how to do business. So what has happened is they had a year to negotiate this. And essentially the Writers Guild said, all right, agencies, if you don't sign this new code of conduct, if we can't come to an agreement, then we are going to instruct all of our writers who are represented by you and by anyone who hasn't agreed to revise the way you've done business to fire their agents. They will have no agents, and any negotiation that needs to be done from them will either be done by lawyers, who there's some legal thing about whether lawyers are even empowered to do that, or the writers themselves. You may have seen on Twitter, particularly in LA, hashtag WGA staffing boost. It's basically now writers are going to social media to promote other writers because TV shows now need to get staffed, need to hire writers. So that's basically where we are, is the WGA doesn't like the way that the talent agents are doing their business. They've instructed their members to fire any agent who hasn't signed a new code of conduct, largely saying that we're not going to do these packaging deals anymore. We're going to represent writers directly and get the commissions up for writers and for agents. And we're at an impasse.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Now understand what happened.
So where does that really trickle down to affect, like, this isn't going to be a situation like, remember, like 10, 11 years ago where there was that strike and like...
Right. It's not a work stoppage. So the writers are still working. There's nothing stopping them from working. And actually, there's nothing stopping the writers individually from not firing their agents. It's basically the Writers Guild just saying, like, hey, if you want to be in solidarity with the union, then this is what we're telling you need to do. And I'm sure that if you don't, there was one writer yesterday that was the first major one to break. I mean, there will be repercussions, but it's not like necessarily crossing a picket line, although I know a lot of writers in the Guild do consider people that are not united to be scabs. It's crossing a metaphorical picket line. But that's the thing, is work's not stopping. So shows still need writers and writers still need to get hired, but the agents now have been fired. So now it's all about the
managers.
The
What
chaos.
about managers?
Managers are still there, but managers, again, there's a whole legal, there's going to be legal challenges and everything, because there are people saying, like, they don't know if managers and lawyers are actually legally empowered to do the kind of negotiation that a talent agent would do. So it's a mess, basically. So we're going into heavy TV staffing season with a lot of writers in Hollywood, a majority, I would say, probably, without representation. Unless they have an agent, there are some small agencies who have signed the code of conduct, who have said, we're not going to do these packaging deals. And if you're a writer who has one of those agents, then you can keep that representation. That's why there's also been whispers that, like, maybe some major agents will leave these big agencies and go to smaller ones that are going to sign this code of conduct and continue to represent their clients, which is if
But
this
then
is
that
protracted.
I was going to say that would imply that they might know that this is going to go on for a while, right? That no side is willing to bend.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, like a lot of folks, you'll see if you follow the hashtags, a lot of writers on Twitter are like, hey, I like my agent. We've worked together for a really long time. We've had been able to have a lot of cool opportunities from working together. But, this is something we've got to do. So, you know, there are a lot of people in these agencies who are like, I do this because it's my job and I'm instructed to, you know, because it's just how my company does business. And so now there's going to be, I think, a lot of moves like that, like you say, Dan, where a lot of people are going to go, you know, how do I feel about this now that we're really like putting a spotlight on it? How do I actually feel about this? And is this a moment where I do maybe like move to an agency that has signed these codes of conduct, or it's a really sort of bizarre and interesting time. I think, you know, this is a lot of what the writer's strike was about, but writers are already making less and less and less, you know, over the years than they used to back in the day because of so much content going digital.
Shorter seasons.
Shorter seasons. So when you have the level that is ostensibly in charge of finding you work, like making a ton of money off of you, when you're already making so much less than you already should have been. Like, I totally see that as like, okay.
Like, it's kind of like a crabs in the barrel thing, because if TV writers are making less and less, then so are the agencies would be making less and less off of their just straightforward writers' contracts.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that's the contention, is you could have a situation where an agency represents a Breaking Bad type show and says, hey, I've got this show, I have these 4 writers that work on the show, I'm bringing it to you, the network, I'll sell it to you as a package deal. You know, the agency would then get, if the show was a massive hit, would get a percentage of the profits from that show for a very long time, and they could potentially make tens of millions of dollars. But if they negotiated as part of that deal that the writers work for, you know, not a great amount of money, well, then those writers now are working on a huge, massive hit show that is generating millions of dollars for the agency. But they're not seeing that because the contract, the fee that they were negotiated was maybe a little bit lower, because that made it more of an attractive deal for the network and for the agency to sell to the network.
Yeah.
That's, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but this is what a lot of writers and a lot of members of the WG are saying has happened to them or has the potential to happen more and more, which is why they consider this to be so important.
Well, there you go, guys.
Yeah.
Any more fat to chew on there? Do we feel like we're all up to speed?
They're like I say, it's intractable. The WGA turned down a deal. Basically, the agencies came and said, we'll share 1% of our packaging fees with you if you won't do this. And the Writers Guild was like, no, we're not going to do that. So they're right now, they're not actively negotiating. It looks like this could go on for a while. As I mentioned, there's potential legal challenges. So I guess the thing to watch would be, do writers break ranks? Do agents break ranks? And then as we go forward, does it impact in any way production? Because these shows still have to staff up. Maybe there will be an alternate way that Hollywood figures out how to staff up all these shows.
Because I feel like so often it happens from like writers know each other, and I guess this hurts because like this will hurt getting people you aren't friends with hired, because it's like that's where agents can introduce you to people and scripts that you've never seen before. But like. There's no shortage of screenwriters in Los Angeles. Like, you can throw a rock and hit a few.
I think it hurts potentially new shows.
Yeah.
Because agents are definitely the one thing they do remain motivated is selling new things to networks, because it generates money for them whether they take a package deal or not. So if there's no agents representing those interests, then that could be even harder to get new projects in front of people. And so.
Wow. Well, we'll be following this one as it develops here on Fandom Entertainment Screen Junkies Universe. FESJU. Easy to remember. Our third and final story of the day. Oh yeah, more Thrones, baby. Hope your Throner has not calmed down since last night. I know mine hasn't. Or is it Tuesday? I don't know. The season 8 premiere broke so many records via Variety. It drew 17.4 million viewers across all platforms, including 11.8 million who watched it on the linear channel. No word on how many people were using a stolen HBO Go password. And that's just Sunday night, so more and more people, I'm sure, are watching yesterday and today. So the season 7 premiere was more than 1 million people less, 16.1, and only 10 million watching on the linear channel. And this beat the previous series high of 16.9 million. So boom, 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 Game of Thrones only growing larger longer, stronger in its final season. Guys, is this the last true water cooler show? The last big show that matters?
I think so.
It
I
feels
definitely
like
think
it.
so. Yeah. There's almost nothing left besides maybe like big sporting events, Super Bowl or whatever, that's like appointment TV, because you don't want to be the one person that walks into work and can't talk about Game of Thrones. But it's like Stranger Things, yeah, there's like other shows that are huge, but I remember that having like a slow roll. Like I heard about it, you got to watch this, and then by like 3 or 4 months, and that's when it was like. But with streaming and things going up all at once, like there's no like, did you watch this last night?
Yeah.
Can you believe
Well,
happened?
there will continue to be like big, massive shows, but there's something about, and shows that people love, and I'm sure that there will be big shows, within Disney Plus or the Lord of the Rings $1 zillion show that's going to roll out on Amazon. But I think the difference is, as big as those get, they're still in a niche. Like, I can't necessarily, go to, I mean, obviously at this job, yes, but like my dad doesn't go to work and be like, did anybody catch Bucky and, Winter Soldier and the Falcon? And everyone's like, nah. But there's something about...
God, I wish it was called Bucky and the Falcon.
Bucky and the Fowl. Actually, that would be amazing. Bucky and the Fowl. Bucky and Fowl. But there's something about Game of Thrones that sort of transcended the genre. I think it was sort of because it was so grounded when it started. That it sort of transcended just being like, this is a cool fantasy show, and like really kind of captured a lot of attention and interest. So in that way, yeah, I don't see anything else sort of stepping up and being
But
able
even
to challenge
that, like Game of Thrones, just even if take out the dragons and all that stuff, like sword and sandal type stuff is usually not the stuff that like breaks out into the mass, like pop culture zeitgeist. Like even this, I remember like so stupidly. We were doing TCAs, and it was HBO day, and it was like 4 o'clock, and they're like, we have one show left. You guys want this? It's coming out next year. It's Game of Thrones. We have like Sean Bean and Peter Dinklage, and I was like, no one's going to watch this. No. And we passed. It was like so dumb. Yeah. I don't think anyone could have seen this coming. So it's like maybe something will break out, but if you had shown me everything that year that was going to premiere, this would be so far down on the list of what would be a hit.
Yeah, well, I think it's crossed the genre, because the first time I heard of Game of Thrones was in season 1, and I still didn't watch it till the next year. In season 1, when I heard like, oh my God, this crazy show on HBO killed off its main character. I was like, and then come on.
I mean, back then.
Back then, yes, and I didn't even care. Like, I read the article and it was like, oh, Sean Bean, he was the lead of the show, and they killed him in the 9th episode. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's cool, and that was it. I didn't watch the show. I didn't, but it over time it gained that reputation of just doing these crazy, audacious things. Obviously, culminating with the Red Wedding, which I was watching by the time that happened, but I think it's people have stopped looking at it as a fantasy show almost, and it's just more about Arya and Jon Snow and Daenerys, and yes, I think people are tied up in dragons and White Walkers and stuff, but it's not so much that it's the fantasy element. It's like, what's going to happen? Who's going to die? And I think that's the brilliance of it, is it transcends that genre barrier that some other shows have had.
And I don't
Spartacus
know.
Blood and Sand people liked, but it never became
Yeah,
Game of
exactly.
Thrones.
But that's the thing, is it gets kind of hazy, because obviously Breaking Bad was another one like that got a slow start, and not until like its 3rd season was it a hit show. How did the numbers compare by the end? Was it in the tens of millions even?
Its last episode was the most watched episode of the show ever.
Of the
way to do
show,
it.
but was it like, did it compare to a Game of Thrones at all?
No.
It seems like it did. So I think that there
don't
will
think
be television for the rest of time that kind of dominates the conversation, the cultural conversation we're having. But like, just on sheer numbers alone, I don't think so, man. The way all these streaming services and cable channels are slicing up the pie, like you can have things that are a hit that just live in their own universe that nobody outside of that ever watches. But great storytelling plus luck. There will be more transcendent shows that break out.
This just was such a perfect storm. Like there was interest in the books, and then sort of, a part that I think really fascinated people was that whole narrative that started to wrap around like, well, George R. R. Martin even finished the books. Like, what happens when the show catches up with the books? Like, I just think there was just a perfect storm of just story around this show coming out that got people in on it. It's again like who's gonna die? I'm attached to these characters. It does what Walking Dead's not able to do because everyone knows that this is going to end. Like, this is going to have a finite ending. Whereas Walking Dead, like, yeah, I was attached to those people at first, but like once you realize it's just going to become like an infinite depression slog, like I'm out. But with this, you know, yeah, there's some depression slogs in here, but like because it has a finite ending on its way, it's able to peak and valley and actually be a really superior piece of storytelling.
I think the most impressive number out of this is the 11.8 who watched it on the linear channel, meaning they at 7 or 8, whatever time the show comes on,
sat down.
it's like appointment viewing. Like, to get that number for essentially appointment viewing television, it doesn't happen anymore. Like, everything now is at our leisure. I'll watch it when I can. I'll watch it at, 10, 11 p.m., Not exactly when it starts. So 11.8 to get an audience to be like, I'm stopping what I'm doing, I'm tuning in, like, that's insane. That's a huge number. You don't see that anymore.
I was one of those.
Yeah.
I didn't trust my internet connection. I was like, I will not have a weak router signal ruin this for me. I turned on the TV. It was right there. Didn't have to worry about buffering or streaming or quality degradation. Nope, just watched it right on it was perfect.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
But just to put this all in perspective, like, this was probably, an episode of Mod back in the day. It was probably, This was probably getting like 10, 11 million people. This is our second Mod reference in a week on SJU.
Well done.
Good times. Guys, I think that's our show. The script just says outro, so I'm going to wing it. Screen Junkies Universe. New name, but also the same name, but the same great content you know and love. That's Dan Murrell, Spencer J. Gilbert, Joe Starr, Spencer J. Gilbert, Billy Business. We'll be here tomorrow.
We will.
Cluster F-ing our way through another episode.
Also, there's honest trailers and commentaries, charting, where you
You did a cool thing with Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you dove into the ratings a little bit.
Yes, I would like to underscore that was all, as I said up front, it was all just extrapolation. And a lot of people are just like, you got this very wrong. I'm like, well, it was an experiment.
No.
It was not meant to be a hard data set.
Shame.
So yes, it was an interesting thing about some various scenarios of Game of Thrones were released as a film, the different possibilities where it could have perhaps opened in the box office given the viewers, and I did some extrapolation on viewing parties and stuff that some people are like, you got it wrong. I'm like, well, I haven't seen any evidence of that, but also it's an experiment, so just cold-blooded.
Such a diplomatic way. Well, I haven't seen any evidence that I'm wrong.
Well, no,
so.
it's just like a lot of people are just like, I think it's pretty clear that HBO has adjusted for watching parties and their viewer numbers. I'm like, I haven't seen any evidence that they did, and I don't know how they could have, because I don't think that they ask, did you
bring
up
a
on
friend?
HBO Go? Like,
It's because
how many people are watching?
They
in the room
scroll
right
through
now?
the hashtag on Instagram and they try to count just the amount of food they see when people take pictures of their. Here's what we made. It's
a lot of baby carrots.
They're like that's at least meat pies for 9.
Well, and a lot of people were like, you didn't take into, when you were looking at the number of people that would have gone to the movies to see Game of Thrones, you didn't even take into account the people that pirate the show. I'm like, well, yeah, of course I didn't. Because, I'm going to assume that if you're a dick enough to pirate the show for free, that you're a dick enough to pirate a movie for free. Yes, it's dickish behavior, and I don't care what you think about it. So, no, I did not account for those people, because I'm just going to assume that if they're going to steal a television show, they're also going to steal a movie.
But you wouldn't download a car. All right, guys.
Did you account for real pirates?
I did not.
Just throwing it out there.
I did not.
Okay, watch that video here on Fandom Entertainment. It should be somewhere here, or possibly there. See you next time.